I spent 4 months of this past year cycling around all regions of Italy. It took me 128 days, over 6,400 kilometers, and I wanted to travel to areas, like off the beaten path and just kind of discover things by myself. And in this video today, I'm just going to share some of my favorite spots that I go back to Italy just to travel to these places on holiday. So starting off in the northwest in a place called Savona. It's on the Ligurian coast and it's a decently sized city. Smaller than Genova. Genova is just completely hectic. It's a port city, everything. Bit of a mess for me personally. But Savona, nice and small. And I arrived here on day 38 of my trip, just a month and a bit into it. And it was a sunny kind of afternoon. I went into the city to get an ice cream and I came upon this really nice kind of square that just gave me a very nostalgic feel with carnival rides there, kids playing football. It kind of reminded me of my childhood and it was just a nice feeling. And I continued going down the narrow streets, and I came upon this small square where there was a few bars dotted around, and then there was this record shop where the guy was sat outside and he was just playing these jazz records. And I took a seat there and I just got a beer and a cappuccino and just chilled out. It's nice on these trips when you've been cycling all day and you can just chill there. But it just had a very nice feel to it, the whole place. And I had a big beach out the front. Of course, it was a bit too cold to go on that. But I definitely returned to Savona, and in that region I want to explore further down the coast, heading towards France, because there's some very nice beaches there. And as you get into France, you get to Nice and those kind of places. So next up we got Bari. I'm completely switching it up on the complete opposite side of the country here in Puglia. Bari is the capital city of that region. And this was a couple months down the line as I came down the Adriatic Sea. I came into Bari and it's quite a big city, and I headed straight towards the old town, which is generally what I do with these places, as I think most tourists do. You want to see the old architecture, you want to have that kind of rustic feel. And Bari's got a lot to offer in terms of that. It's got a very big old city, lovely restaurants, cafes, everything. And same again, it was a nice sunny afternoon, which definitely made a better impression on me. And I just chilled out with an Aperol Spritz, a coffee, and then went to get some food. And watching the sun come down, I had to go find a campsite. But if you go on holiday there, you shouldn't really have that problem. Bari is a big enough place where it has a lot to keep you busy in terms of museums. There's a lot to see out there. But of course, with me on the bike, I didn't really explore much of that. So definitely a place I go back to see that and just kind of experience it. So not far from Bari now, we're going to Matera, which is in the region of Basilicata. It just borders Puglia, and this is, I'd say you'd never seen a place like this in Italy before. Matera is very unique. It's quite a decently sized city, not the size of Bari or Rome, anything like that, but just the way it's laid out, it's basically like a big crater, and you got these buildings all tiered up coming out, and there's some viewing points around the city where you just see that facade and just all that architecture there, and it just looks amazing, especially when the sun hits it. And at night when everything lights up, it's just a different view altogether. And it was just a lovely place to walk around, probably one of my favorites. Just wandering around the streets, big flagstone pavements, old architecture, a great vibe I got there, and restaurants, all this kind of stuff. And there's a lot to explore there. Under the city, you can head down through the tunnels and everything, and I'd 100% go back to Matera, going back to Italy again. I'd do a trip just to go there because it was that beautiful. So Matera is landlocked, so don't be expecting a beach here, but you are just right next to Puglia, where you got some of the best beaches in the country. So a couple hours drive away, shouldn't be a problem. So Puglia's on the heel, and I was heading west towards the Toe, which is where I was going to get the ferry to Sicily. And that region there is Calabria, on the tip of the boot. And first of all, I got into a place called Tropea, which I hadn't heard about previously, but people had recommended it to me. Sort of name stuck in my head. And, I was very surprised. Very beautiful place. On kind of like a hill face, the city sits on top, and then there's just this lovely kind of coastline on the bottom. There is a road that separates it, but you can walk along it, and it feels kind of well integrated. And there's sandy beaches there, and they're public, which is kind of rare in those kind of areas where they're very touristy, especially when there's limited space. companies love to snag that up and, you know, basically make it private and put lounges on it. So if you approach it from sea level, you have to walk up the stairs to get to that kind of hilltop. And up there, you know, amazing again, just kind of old town, rustic feel, you know, restaurants, cafes, music, bars, everything like that. And there was just this one spot where you know how you do on holiday when you're wandering around and you're looking for that place that you want to settle down and have some food, but you see one, you know, it's not quite right, and you keep going. You're like, oh, I might come back here if I can't find anything. I was doing that for about half an hour, and then I walked to the other side of the town, which I hadn't been to before, and I came upon this beautiful square and like balcony that basically was on the edge of the hill, and it overlooked the sea, and it was looking out west, so the sun was setting down there. And you know, there's a cafe bar that kind of had seats out there, and one just freed up, and I went there, and it was just kind of like a great spot just to watch the sunset and also just have that kind of European ambient vibe about it, which was awesome. So leaving Tropea, I headed west, and I was going to a place called Villa San Giovanni to get the ferry to Sicily. But just before that, I'm talking like a 20-minute cycle, so not far at all, there was this small kind of coastline town called Scilla, and this one is at sea level, so everything is down there, and it was basically just like this long promenade that went along the beach, which was pebbles, and there were restaurants, cafes, and it just kind of had that summer holiday vibe where it was like a small little bubble in a way. But you don't have to go far at all if you get like an Airbnb or a hotel there. You can just come out and you're instantly on the beach, and you have the view out to Sicily. You can just see it in the distance there, and you know, you've got the sun setting and all of that, which is just absolutely beautiful. So moving on west, I got to Sicily and I went through Messina, and then coming towards Taormina, which is the next city that I'd 100% recommend. So Taormina sits up on a hill similar to Tropea, you know, elevated above the coastline, and very polished place, you know, very touristy, probably one of the most touristy places in Sicily. So the city is based along these kind of main pathways, which are just for pedestrians, but you will see some cars go up and down those, you know, some small cinquecentos here and then ambulances and things, but pretty much fully pedestrianised, and it's just an absolute pleasure to walk around. And you'll happen upon some great kind of open piazzas there that just look out towards the sea and the coastline, but then you also got Mount Etna in the distance there, just lightly smoking at the top when I went. So my parents booked the Airbnb in the northwest area of the city, and just be warned, if you do book over there, the incline gets ridiculous. Like it's absolutely insane. When I had to cycle my bike to there, it was very difficult finding it, and it was so difficult actually getting up there. So do bear that in mind in terms of health and also your vehicle. So just make sure you can get up there. You know, the most common vehicle that you see around there is a 4x4 Fiat Panda, you know, Italy's favorite car, maybe Sicily's, or scooters, you know, kind of small, stocky, powerful things that will be able to get you up. So that was just kind of like a short kind of recap of some of my favorite places in Italy. There were, you know, I went through so many places on this trip, and I will be putting together 2 videos, I think. The first one will be kind of like an all-together mashup of all the clips I filmed when I was on the road, and I'll try and put together some kind of cohesive storyline there. The second one I want to do is something similar to this, where I sit down and I talk about the experience, the trip, the stories, all the photos that I took. And the main drive I want that to be done with is with the photo book. So I want to have completed the photo book and be going through it, point out the pictures, and then kind of blend into the clips there and then talk you through it. So that is a mammoth of a task. I have to do the photo book first, be happy with it, complete it, and then do this video. So I'll figure it out as time comes along. I might not wait that long, but I just need to get to work on putting that together. So do expect more videos from Italy, and then also from my trip to Scotland as well, which I've just completed. So there's going to be more content on bikepacking, just going over these trips. And I think I'm also going to blend in some fitness, which I'll get into at some later point in some other videos. But yeah, thank you for watching, and I'll catch you guys later. Ciao!